Hey everybody. Hey everybody. It's Julia Roginski. I am here with my friend Joe Walsh. Joe, something you said today, I think on Twitter or Blue Sky or somewhere that I read that has just stuck with me so much. First of all, thank you for being here.
Julie, it's so good to be with you. I'm a huge fan of you. I love your voice.
You're the best. Thank you. Thanks. But I'm kind of bummed today, and I know you are too. And there's something that you said that it's just stayed with me because it's so true. And only you could say that, or not only you, but anybody who's been a Republican can say that, which is that when you were a Republican member of the House, you guys would make fun of Democrats behind the scenes because you knew they'd always cave, right? Is that true?
And Julie, this isn't a surprise to you. But yes, and it is great to be with you. In my old Republican days, whenever we would get together privately, on the floor, off the floor, out having a beer somewhere, we would always privately laugh at Democrats because we knew they would never fucking go to the mat to win.
Every time.
We knew, and we'd say things like, well, we'll be fine because Democrats never bring a knife to a knife fight. We knew, Julie, like Democrats would never fight to the death politically. And Republicans still believe that. And my God, what happened last night just proved that again.
I mean, I don't even know what to say because it's so upsetting.
Well, I want to ask you a question because you're one of the smartest, toughest people I know, and you love not the party, but you love what you believe in. Like, how could you spin it in? Could you spin it in that they did the right thing? I've been struggling, but I can't.
You know what? You have a bunch of guys who worked in Washington. I saw today, really never Trumper guys, spinning this as saying Democrats need to take the win. They brought attention to this matter and yada, yada. You know, my attitude is we're not in a fucking debate club, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't need to bring attention to a matter. There are people whose healthcare premiums are about to go up by thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars a year. And these are the very same people who just fought against Obamacare back in the day. I know you did too, but I think hopefully you understand what this will mean for people who are paying tremendous amounts of money out of pocket now. Like, Obamacare is here, right? Like, it's here. It's broadly popular.
And Julie, look, the dirty little secret, all of us who fought Obamacare, we've never had another plan. So let's make that really clear. They don't have a plan.
Yeah, of course not. And they keep, and then it's the same shit every time where they're like, we're going to pull, it's going to be okay. We're going to pull this, this rabbit out of a hat. And we're going to, this is going to be it. This is the time that we're going to talk about healthcare. Just open the government up and then we'll have a discussion about healthcare. And every time these guys fall for it. Like, they haven't had a plan on Obamacare since Obamacare. That was in 2009. It's been 16 years? Yeah. 16 years, right? And there's still no plan. And yet now they're like, oh, just reopen the government and we'll talk about healthcare. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because if you had a plan, you would have passed it. You would have passed it. Republicans had control of everything the last time and the time before that and the time before that. And there's never been a plan, ever.
I went to bed last night thinking that, like, Democratic voters and all the resistance folks and the grassroots folks, from the time Trump got sworn in, we've all just had one demand of the party: just fucking fight. Yeah. Just fight. Like, day after day, week after week, month after month. That's all we've been telling the Schumers, the Hakeem Jeffries of the world, the party establishment. Just fight. Meet this fucking moment. And again, Julie, I say this as a former Republican. This ain't your mama and dad's Republican Party. This is, understand what you're up against. And Julie, for some reason, the party, not the voters, the party just doesn't understand that.
I don't get it. I mean, legitimately, I don't get it because it's not complicated. It's not complicated. And the part that kills me is your former senator, Dick Durbin, this number 2 guy in the United States Senate, goes out yesterday and I don't have the clip, I wish I did, goes out yesterday and says, and I'm actually quoting here, you just don't we being the rest of us, you, me, everybody watching right now, just don't understand how the Senate works.
Mm-hmm.
Did the Senate, well, first of all, you and I both know how the Senate worked. I worked there and you served in the House, so I think we get it. But even if you never served a day on Capitol Hill in your life, did something change about how the Senate worked from 40 days ago to how it works now, that suddenly Dick Durbin is singing a different tune? Like, what the hell kind of statement is that?
It's like, and by the way, Dick Durbin, good guy. I'm glad he's not going to run again. But it's like their fear of a shutdown and their protection of the institution, like, just finally overcame the anger, which should carry the day, the anger about what my former party is doing. These 8, and by the way, Julie, it was a lot more than 8 Democratic senators.
Oh my God, of course it was. Please.
Ready to pull the plug, right? Schumer being one of them. It's just, they're institutionalists. It's like somebody came out earlier this morning and said, see, it's the centrists. The centrists suck. Fuck that. No, this is not progressive versus centrist. This is establishment versus fighters. Institutionalists versus populist fighters who understand what we're up against.
And I got to tell you, like, you guys came in, how did you, like, I want to actually talk about how you came to Congress, right? Because I think it's so instructive. In 2008, Barack Obama got elected, and Democrats had not just full control of the House and Senate, they had a filibuster-proof control of the House and Senate, if you remember, for the very short period of time that Ted Kennedy was feeling up to going. And that's how Obamacare passed, right? Ted Kennedy literally on a gurney practically came down there and passed Obamacare. And so, like, Democrats were riding so high that I cannot remember the last time they were in such good shape, or any party was in such good shape. And then in 2009, and I remember this so well because I was working at CNBC, and you had an anchor on CNBC go from the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And I was there, and I remember sitting in studio. I was literally under contract at CNBC watching this and being like, what is this guy talking about? And he started screaming about how we need a Tea Party. 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 All of a sudden, that's how the Tea Party became the Tea Party. And you and a whole bunch of other people were like 1,000% committed to bringing down Barack Obama. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that he had a filibuster-proof majority. It didn't matter because the voters were pissed. They were pissed about Obamacare. They were pissed about so much else. And you guys did it, and you did it.
You know what?
Contrast that, Joe. You tell me.
Julie, I think we're in the same period now. We were pissed at Obama. We wanted to bring him down. We were pissed at our own party. We all ran against our own party establishment. You and I could have a long, interesting conversation on the substance of the Tea Party, but it was an anti-establishment thing. It was a movement that was pissed off because the party didn't recognize how angry the base was. Democrats are going through the same thing right now. The establishment is oblivious to how angry the base is. And so I think the Democrats are having their Tea Party moment. Schumer's gone. He will, and we'll look back on this and realize it, but he's gone. And a bunch of these older guys will be gone. Because, Julie, I think this thing is just going to overtake them. That's what we did.
And and I mean, remember Eric Cantor in 2010?
Yes.
Eric Cantor was the was he the third guy? Or was he
number two? Number two.
He was, of course, he was the whip, right? Or he was the majority.
He was the majority leader right below Speaker.
No. Wait a second. This is when Democrats were not in charge. So.
When Democrats were not in charge, then he would. I think
anyway, it doesn't matter. He was in leadership. Whatever he was in leadership. Yeah. Eric Cantor, nobody expected Eric Cantor to win. Eric Cantor lost to some guy who was severely underfunded. Nobody knew in Virginia, and that guy won. He was a doctor, I believe, or a vet or something. He wasn't even somebody who was in politics. And that was the beginning of the oh shit moment for the Republican establishment, where they realize that if somebody like an Eric Cantor can lose in a primary, what is going to happen? I don't understand. Like, why do I remember this? And why do leaders on Capitol Hill who are Democrats not remember this? Why do I see what happened with Zora Mondani versus Andrew Cuomo, but nobody in Washington does? Now they're going to sit there and say, like Chuck Schumer, oh, well, that's because Cuomo had all of these personal problems and everybody hated Cuomo and the women and yada yada. Maybe it's also because Cuomo has repeatedly been the establishment guy, and also because he got endorsed by Donald Trump, which wasn't really help. But you have, and I guess they're grasping at the fact that Mikey Sherrill won and Abigail Spanberger won, and that's why. But listen, they won because of this broad anger.
Yeah.
At Democrats, and Democrats might win next year. I'm not suggesting Democrats are not going to be in the majority next year. They very well could be, but which Democrats are going to be in the majority? A, and B, more relevantly, you can't just be the anti-Trump party. You got to actually stand for something. Like, oh, I don't know, giving healthcare to people who are about to lose it.
So here's the problem, Julie. And by the way, John Boehner, when he became speaker because of us, I remember him telling us that this thing was going to overtake him. Like, Boehner recognized it. I always loved him for that. Here's the thing. Democrats are falling back into the trap that because Trump is so bad, maybe they don't have to do much. Like Julie, we saw it last week, right? All of us, we'd strip naked and crawl across broken glass for miles to vote against Trump. I don't think what Democrats did last night will hurt midterms at all. It's just going to increase the anger of the base at their party. So when they do win in 26, when we win, I think establishment Dems are just going to be tossed aside.
Are you sorry you switched parties after you saw what you saw yesterday? Seriously, like, are you like rethinking your decision to join this party?
I do every day. And I got to be honest, I was really bummed out last night because, Julie, I don't know about you. I thought after Tuesday, like the momentum was, but I thought we were like just gonna, and to see them cave this quickly, again, it goes back to the conversations I used to have with my Republican buddies back in the day. Democrats aren't going to fight. And so I began to worry about that again last night. Because for better or for worse, I'm a fighter, and I don't want to be in a party that won't fight. I don't. It's part of why I became a Democrat, is to help show Democrats how to fight. My God, they had the perfect fucking opportunity last night.
Yeah.
Trump's getting pounded. You know this. Republicans privately were scared to death of this shutdown because they're getting beaten up.
Do you still talk to your former colleagues on the Republican side down there?
Rarely. It stopped a few years ago. I used to all the time, but not much anymore.
But do you get any intel on like where they were last week? Were they kind of getting apprehensive, or were they just like we're more scared of Trump than we are of the voters? Like, what were they thinking, do you think?
To a man and a woman, they knew they were going to get beat up politically last Tuesday. They knew it was going to be bad.
Right.
But they're still in the place where they can't blame Trump. I had a couple of them tell me privately, of course, this is a reaction to Trump. Look what he's doing with ICE. And they're very nervous about what ICE is doing. Many Republicans are. They won't say that publicly. They know that's a bad issue for them, but they're not going to blame Trump. But they are very nervous privately. And that's what's so frustrating about what the Democrats did. Let them off the hook.
It's very interesting. You look at New Jersey last year, right? And Trump came within 5 points of winning New Jersey, which is, I think the last time a Republican won New Jersey was George Herbert Walker Bush in 1988. So it's been a long time. And then you have part of that was because, not part of that, a large part of that was because of Latinos, right? Latinos, and I hate using Latinos is kind of this big cohort because just because they all speak Spanish and come from a particular
Yeah.
part, or one spoke Spanish and come from a particular part of the world, doesn't mean they have much in common, right? Like, I don't think Argentinians have much in common with Cubans, and Puerto Ricans have in common with Mexicans and so on, right? Like, it's like saying Irish people have something in
Yeah.
common with Australians because they speak English, right? Like, it kind
Yeah.
of doesn't make sense. However, um, um, if you have to kind of put that in a broad swath, the Latino community largely shifted very much towards Trump last time. And this time, tremendous shift back, huge shift back to the Democrats. And so to me, Latinos are no longer part of the Democratic base necessarily. They are the ultimate
No.
swing cohort, right? Like, and Democrats better take that seriously and better start understanding that they're not going to be able to just take that vote for granted anymore. And I think in some ways that was a wake up call last year. But I also have to wonder at which point Democrats understand that what happened yesterday, or sorry, on Tuesday, a week ago, was because of the fact that Latinos were disgusted with Donald Trump, disgusted with the fact that he's making everything cost more. They're, a lot of them are very business conscious, small business owners, and so on and so forth. And also about the fact that, like, listen, they may not care about people walking down the street who are here undocumented immigrants because that has nothing to do with them. They're not necessarily,
Yeah.
They've been, some of them have been here for generations, longer than my family has been for sure. But when you can get pulled over and ask for your papers because your skin happens to have a particular kind of hue, or you speak Spanish to your abuela, even though you've been born here, and so is your mother, like, at some point that becomes very personal. And this immigration thing, as much as Trump thinks it's a big winner for him, it is with the base. I don't know that it is necessarily with a swing cohort like Latino voters, although I have to say it used to be back in the day. I did a focus group of Latino voters maybe 2-3 years ago, longer, maybe 4 or 5 years ago during Trump's first term. And they were unhappy that people were putting them into the same bucket as undocumented.
Yeah. Yeah.
They found that offensive. But now
Yeah.
I think it's gone too far.
Yeah, Latino voters traditionally are very anti-illegal immigration. It's like, Julie, like, I respectfully went after Hakeem Jeffries on election night because he had like the nerve to tweet, "The Democratic Party is back. Enough with the obituaries of the Democratic Party. We're back." Tuesday had nothing to do with the Democratic Party.
That lasted 5 days.
Yeah, absolutely nothing to do with the Democratic Party. These were pissed off voters, Democratic voters, base voters, grassroots voters. They've been carrying the party along these last 10 months. The party's never recognized this moment we're in. Voters, people you and I talk to, the people who listen to us, they've gotten it. They understand how fucking dangerous that guy is in the White House. They understand how wrong it is that a Arizona congresswoman who got elected 40 days ago hasn't been sworn in yet. The party didn't win Tuesday night, and my God, they better not think that way.
Well, this whole victory lap thing, this dunking, I guess lasted 5 days, and that's a record for Democrats. Usually we're in the fetal position even after we win, as soon as, because the one thing you could trust is that we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it did last only 5 days. I mean, if you look at the large scheme of things, it only lasted 5 days. And then what happened? Talk about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Like, talk about just, you had every largest, I said this today, I went on MSNBC today and I got a tremendous amount of pushback and also support depending on where you stand, because I basically said it's time for Chuck Schumer to go. And of course you can't go on MSNBC without say that without everybody losing their mind, because apparently that's the Bible of where Democrats watch stuff.
Yeah.
But it should be here, but it's there. But the reality is, like, you're absolutely right. They are sitting around patting themselves on the back. And look what happened. You had the largest protest. I don't know why I'm giving a thumbs up. You had the largest protest movement in the history of this country. That was not organized by Washington Dems.
Right.
That was Indivisible and a bunch of grassroots people who marched. Right. I marched with my husband and my son, not because somebody called me and told me to march. I just felt compelled to speak out against what was happening with Donald Trump, as did millions of other people. In fact, had this been organized from Washington, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
You had that. Then you had from sea to shining sea, literally elections that were landslides that were expected to be much, much, much closer, whether in Virginia or in New Jersey. We got the supermajority. We broke the supermajority in Mississippi. I mean, give me a break. In Georgia, we won 3 statewide, state level seats that had not been Democratic in 22 years. And I could keep going state by state. Nobody anticipated that the California Prop 50 referendum was going to be a landslide the way it was.
Yeah.
That was all because of Trump. That was all because of Trump. And then the third thing that happened, obviously, is that poll after poll was showing that the ownership of the shutdown was being borne by Trump and the Republican Party. So all the Democrats had to do was literally sit down, shut up, and let things play out. But they just couldn't. And what pisses me off, and you touched on this earlier, is it's anybody who's not up next year. Those were the 8 that did this, right?
Yeah.
The ones who are either retiring, like Gene Shaheen and Dick Durbin, or the ones who are not up until 30 or 32 or whenever they're not up.
The vast majority of people, per the exit polls, who voted last Tuesday are pissed off at both parties. The vast majority of people are displeased with both parties. Now, most of those voters voted for the Democratic Party, but they're pissed off at both parties. You and I campaigned my ass off for Kamala Harris last year. And everybody said the same thing to me. Yeah, Joe, Trump's an asshole, but the Democrats look down on me. They're elitist, all of that. That's still there. It's like nobody's voting affirmatively yet for this party. And the party, again, we've been living without a Congress. We've been living without a House of Representatives. These are not normal times. I don't want Democrats to act, Senate Democrats, like these are normal times. They're not. And those 8 senators voted last night like these were normal times. It's just fundamentally wrong.
Well, and then speaking of elitists, to have the number 2 ranking Democrat in the Senate, who, by the way, is not an elitist. Dick Durbin's from Chicago.
Yeah.
He's whatever. He's like a normal guy. Suddenly start lecturing the rest of us on how we don't get what it's like to be a senator and what the Senate is like. Like, talk about condescending.
He's an institutionalist, Julie.
He's an institutionalist. Yeah. And you know what? The institution is broken. I served in that institution. You served in that institution. When we served in that institution, you on the House side, me on the Senate side, obviously remember I was staff, but nevertheless, those days are gone. I mean, I've told the story of, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I've once in a while alluded to this story. I don't know if people have heard it who are watching the show. I was in Washington on 9/11 and I was in the Senate, and the senator I worked for apparently decided he and I had a mutual like murder-suicide pact because everybody else got to go home, but I had to stay on the Hill with him after those planes hit. The plane hit the Pentagon. And so he said to me, "You're staying with me today." And I said, "Okay, fine." And we were evacuated with the rest of the Senate to the Capitol Police Headquarters, which you know where that is, right? Yeah. And I spent the day with the Senate. And it was Democrats and Republicans both. And I was one of the very, very, very few staffers who was there. And there was no press and very little staff. So you got to see these guys in their state of nature. It was really like a very interesting experiment to see what these guys were like in a really tense, awful, unprecedented situation, a national emergency. And without the president being around, or leadership got evacuated very quickly. So it was really the rank and file. And what you saw was both sides getting together and basically trying to figure out a path forward. Nobody was grandstanding. There was no Twitter back then. There were no selfies. There was no Instagram. There was no going live here on, on Substack or on YouTube or anywhere else. So we were all kind of left to our own devices. And what you saw was all of them getting together and trying to figure out what the best course of action was for the country. Yeah. Nobody's running around blaming George Bush for missing the boat. That would come later. Nobody's running around blaming Democrats for, Bill Clinton not getting Osama bin Laden earlier. People were literally just sitting around figuring out among themselves who was going to be their emissary to talk to leadership, right? And in that case, leadership was, they decided that it was going to be Joe Lieberman, both Republicans and Democrats decided Joe Lieberman was going to be their guy who was going to be on the phone to Trent Lott and Tom Daschle. And so I think about that day so often, Joe, and with a lot of sadness, not just because of 9/11, but particularly in sadness, because could you imagine if that happened today? What
It wouldn't happen.
it wouldn't happen. It would not happen. The Capitol Police would have to separate them and basically prevent them from killing each other. And you'd have assholes on the right tweeting about how this is Donald Trump's fault, Donald Trump tweeting this is Democrats' fault, Democrats on the left saying this is Donald Trump's fault. Like, it would be a disaster. And that's why I say that the institution is finished. It's over. It wasn't necessarily killed by Donald Trump, although he had a lot to do with it. It was killed by social media and partisan television networks. Back in 2001, Fox News was only 4 years old at the time, 5 years old at the time. MSNBC also. CNN was certainly not what CNN is today. You didn't have any of this. You didn't have anybody speaking straight to camera, or I couldn't even call my mom to tell her I was alive because it was impossible to get a phone line out. So, it doesn't. The institution that Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer and all these guys grew up in, it does not exist anymore.
Like, and it blows my mind, Julie, that there are any Democrats who at this point still trust any Republican to negotiate in good faith. It just utterly blows my mind that any Democrat thinks that. And again, you're right. Trump didn't cause this. He's the ugly product of a broken system, but he is a unique threat. And it's like when he won again, Julie, and even former President Biden, we all acknowledged he won, unlike what Trump did in 2020. The people spoke, he won. But then you don't have to invite him over to the White House. You don't have to go down to Mar-a-Lago, Democrats, and see if you can work with him. No, because look what Trump did the minute he got sworn in. Him and Elon Musk just went on a blitzkrieg. And like Democrats were caught flat-footed. Trump told us what he was going to do. He pardoned his co-conspirators last night, his January 6th co-conspirators. You can't negotiate with a person like this.
Listen, I mean, he didn't even pardon them because it actually merited a pardon, since none of them were charged. They weren't charged.
I'm sorry, commuted their sentences.
No, my point is, they weren't even charged at the federal level. So it's all it's all performance art, and it's bullshit.
Yes.
It was to stick it to the Dems.
Yeah.
It was to send a message to others who would break the law on his behalf that it didn't matter. Right. And I think that's the problem, right? What is so problematic about all of this is that you have a guy who's all about performance art. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. And he's made the Republican Party that much crueler because he doesn't care.
Right. And Julie, a party, hello, my Democratic colleagues, a party, the Republican Party, that is utterly beholden to him. So even good guys in the House and the Senate on the Republican side, you cannot depend on or count on or deal with right now. You just can't. You have to beat them. You have to fight them. And Democrats this week, we've had Republicans on the ropes, and you let them off.
Yeah. On the ropes. I mean, I don't get it. I just don't get it, because what was all this for? Like, there are people, like, who should be really pissed off more than you and I, because luckily you and I are not relying on paychecks from the federal government. The people who haven't been paid in weeks because this government was shut down. The people who haven't been able to get on a flight because this government was shut down. The people who were laid off, because this government was shut down. And after all of that, I was effectively told by Dick Durbin and by these other people today that all of that was for nothing. All of these people were told that all of this was for nothing.
It's from Durbin and the institutionalists. It's just a fear. The government cannot be shut down. It's a fear. It's the protection of the government, the institution. And that just overtook them, because you and I know, again, it was a lot more than just those 8 Democrats who voted yes. And there's a difference. You know this too, Julie. There's a difference between the House and the Senate. Senators do feel like they're special kind of animals. They're different. They're better than those folks in the House. And even Julie, even they held a press conference and they're trying to explain why they did what they did. I mean, they did more damage to themselves. And then Angus King said, standing up to Donald Trump isn't working. Standing up to Donald Trump isn't working, he said.
I mean, I made this analogy this morning, but I'll make it again. Could you imagine Winston Churchill? This is a crazy analogy because it's not working. Can you imagine Winston Churchill watching the Germans blitz the shit out of the East End in London, saying, you know what? It's standing up to Adolf Hitler is just not working. So why don't we just cut a deal? Like, what are we talking about here? You became a Democrat. You have some very specific, I think, policy views that probably don't align with the Democratic Party, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But you became a Democrat because there's something more important than your views on tax rates, or even, I don't know where you are on abortion, but things that normally would make you a Republican, right? And that is autocracy and that is democracy.
Amen.
That is why Liz Cheney, all of these people spoke out against the party to which they belong their entire life, because something greater is at stake than this. And you put everything on
my policy beliefs on a shelf for a while. Yeah.
I know. And I cannot even imagine how difficult that must be, because I can only imagine if the roles were reversed and I had to support if I want to pick one out, right? A pro-life, president or candidates, because I'm so upset about what's happening with respect to democracy. I get it. I can't get it personally because I've never had to do it, but I can only imagine how hard it is. And yet you did it because something is at stake that's really important. And here you have Angus King, who is in a safe seat in Maine. He's not going to be primary because he's not a Democrat. He's an independent, and he's going to be there for life if he wants, because he's able to pull from both sides, and he's in a good place. Why?
Hey, Julie, because you got a promise that there might be a vote in December on the Obamacare subsidies. Mike Johnson's going to do that? Like the guy that still hasn't sworn in a member of Congress? Come on.
Yeah. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here, and why are we here? And I don't understand Jean Shaheen, you're leaving. Why do you care? Her own daughter, who's running for something, I forgot what, state senate, maybe Congress. I don't know what her daughter
a congressional seat.
Right? Yeah. So I think her daughter, Stephanie. Yes, you're right. She's running for New Hampshire 1, I think.
Yeah.
She came out against her own mother.
Yeah. By the way, Julie, there were some good, brave Democrats, like John Ossoff down in Georgia, in a tough election this year. Yeah. No, did the right thing.
Ossoff did the right. I mean, a lot of them did the right thing, right? A lot of them did the right thing. And you've got these 2 members of the Senate from Nevada. I hope and I pray, and I said this morning, and I really mean this, that there is a good Latina croupier working at Bellagio who wants to primary one of them in a couple years. It's not going to be next year because, of course, they're not up. But, it's that kind of craven bullshit that's just like, why? Why are you telling people in Nevada that you're going to lower their healthcare costs? You're going to fight like hell to the death to make sure that they can afford their premiums. Oh, never mind. And meanwhile, again, if you're the senator from Virginia, why did all these people who live in Nova in Northern Virginia, why did they just miss their paychecks for the last 40 days?
I'm watching the same movie I was in 10 to 12 years ago. The Tea Party went after the Republican Party establishment. The Republican Party establishment was arrogant, never saw it coming. Yeah. Again, different issues, different policies, but there's a Tea Party brewing right now, a populist anti-establishment movement in this Democratic Party, and the party establishment just doesn't get it. And it'll overtake a lot of them. And the sad thing is, again, assuming there are midterms, because Trump and the Republicans, hello, Democrats, are going to try to fucking cheat wherever they can. But assuming there are midterms, the anger about what this fascist in the White House is doing will probably get the Democrats the House next year, at least the House. But the base then is just pissed, and there will be establishment Democrats who will lose.
Let me ask you this. Do you think we're going to have elections next year?
I'm going to say what I generally say. And again, if I'm a crazy man, Julie, never invite me back. I say it's 50-50. I mean that.
Crazy man. I think that's absolutely right.
I mean, we're talking about someone who lost an election and committed crimes trying to overthrow it. Are you telling me he won't mess with the midterms next year? Yeah. I'm not going to take that chance.
What do we do? What would you do if all of a sudden he says there's a state of emergency, he declares a war? If you remember, he really perked up very much when Zelensky was in the White House.
Oh.
Remember that back in February or March, and they pressed why he hasn't had elections, and Zelensky said, "Oh, it's because we're in an existential war." And all of a sudden, Trump was like, "Oh, really?"
Yes, good pickup, Julie. A lot of people miss that.
That's the only time he actually seemed interested in that whole meeting. He let everybody else beat up on Zelensky in the meantime, but that was the only time he seemed interested. So, what do we do? Honestly, because you've served, what do we do if in fact Trump says, you know what, I've now declared war in Venezuela or whatever country he wants to declare a war on next, and we're in a crisis and we're not going to have elections? That would be the first time, by the way. We had elections during the Civil War. We had elections during both world wars. We had elections during, since the founding of the nation, including while the Revolutionary War was happening.
Yes.
So what do you think?
Julie, if he has a plan, and I know people around him, the plan is, and Trump kind of does, that's the whole basis for his use of the military here. He wants a 2026 where those ICE thugs are doing what they're doing. The National Guard is in Democratic states and Democratic precincts. The military, I mean, the Marines are on the streets in Chicago and wherever, because he wants to incite chaos and violence. And then he's got his reason, his excuse to say Insurrection Act or whatever, and say, we can't have elections in Illinois, midterms in Illinois. Chicago's a mess. It's chaos. And he'll do that in a few Democratic states and then try to get the whole country to call it off. I know that's the plan. What can we do? It's a fascinating question. I mean, the two most powerful things we as citizens have, the rights we have, are the right to vote, the power of the vote, and the power to engage in civil disobedience, a step beyond protesting, where we purposely ignore our government and non-violently stand against our government, knowing we'll get arrested. I think if that were to happen, Julie, you'd see mass demonstrations of Americans getting arrested. All hell would break loose.
It's interesting because Republicans always talked about the Second Amendment as something necessary because of the government. We got to stand up to the government, and this is our bulwark against the government. And I used to always laugh, and I used to always say, what the hell are you talking about? I don't care if you have an AK-47. The government has nukes. The government has tanks. Like, you with your gun is not going to stop, that you're not going to stop the government. And now how roles have reversed, where the government has all the power. It is abusive in the same exact way that Republicans always fear the government would be, which is why they always push the Second Amendment. It's like as crazy as it is for you to now become a Democrat is as crazy as for me to suddenly be like, that's the stuff Republicans used to say.
And
saying it.
And Julie, to your point, don't get mad at me. I can remember huddling with Jim Jordan and other Freedom Caucus.
I wouldn't say huddling and Jim Jordan in the same sentence.
I love setting you up for stuff like that.
That was not a tough one, my friend, but go ahead.
And we Freedom Caucus guys would say, man, Obama, man, he's like becoming a tyrant with all these executive orders. Big government, man. This is why we've got our guns. We got to protect ourselves against the very fucking thing that we feared is in the White House now, an actual tyrant. And yet Jim Jordan, none of these Republicans anymore talk about our Second Amendment rights against government tyranny when it's here. It's actually here.
Let me ask you here, Liz. Does Jim Jordan actually believe what he believes, or you think he's just totally an opportunist? Like, does he actually believe, does he have a core set of beliefs about this? Like, we should stand up to tyranny irrespective of who it is? Or is he just a party guy where you just ignore if it's not your party?
So every one of my former colleagues is different. Here's what I'd say about Jordan. For Jim Jordan, you, Julie, are the enemy. You are evil. The Democrats are communists. They're evil. This is what he's always said to me. So it doesn't matter what our side's doing, Julie. We have to defeat them because Democrats are evil. That's what Jim Jordan believes. Jordan didn't like Trump from the beginning, but Jim Jordan would say to me, Joe, I know he's flawed, man. I know, but they're evil, Joe. They're evil. That's how Jordan thinks.
So it's like an ends justify the means thing, right?
Completely.
Like, yeah,
completely.
Interesting. You know, what I kind of find interesting is that I think more and more you're going to see that from the Democrats too, because as much as we're sitting here dunking in the institutionalists, the institutions no longer hold. It just becomes a question of my side good, your side bad, your side so bad that my side can do whatever it wants just to make sure that your side doesn't win. And, you know, I don't know how that ends. I don't know how that ends because eventually I think Democrats will figure out how to play this game. It'll be after Chuck Schumer's gone and certainly Durbin's leaving and so on. But, you know, look, Maine, speaking of Angus King, Maine to me is really interesting because you've got Graham Plattner, who's got literally a Nazi tattoo on his chest, an SS tattoo on his chest, which he claims that he was not aware for the last 18 years, I guess was never curious enough to find out what that tattoo meant.
Yeah.
And then you've got Janet Mills, who is a sitting governor and a popular governor, and she's a little on the older side, but it strikes me that Plattner is going to win. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next year, but if the election were held today, I think Plattner would win.
So you remember, Julie, part of what went on with the Tea Party too was a lot of flawed candidates won nominations.
Yeah.
And they didn't win the generals. That went along with the Tea Party as well.
Remember the witch from Delaware?
I'm not a witch. I was going to say that. I'm not a witch. Connecticut, right? What was
No, Delaware. She was in Delaware. Yeah.
I mean, and look, I think the average Democratic grassroots primary voter doesn't give a fuck about what anybody's done. And so that'll play to Plattner's advantage. But Janet Mills is a badass and she's tough and she went after Trump. I still think she's got a shot of winning that.
No, maybe. But my point is, let's assume that Graham Plattner wins, right? Let's assume that he wins, and let's assume that he beats Susan Collins because people are just sick to death of the whole like, I'm concerned and I'm this and I'm that. Like, you know, who likes Susan Collins anymore? So, you know, you're about to have a bunch of guys who are going to go to Washington who owe nothing to anybody. Right? They're not going to owe it to the DSCC that wasn't behind them. They're not going to owe it to the establishment that mentored them. You're going to have a bunch of John Fettermans, right? Except that unlike John Fetterman, presumably they'll be more in the Bernie Sanders mold. We don't owe anybody jack, but not as personally flawed, you know, but much more personally flawed than Bernie Sanders. And I don't mean to pick on Plattner other than he's got a big old Nazi tattoo on his chest and I don't like that. But you have all of the, you know, you're about to have a crazy situation happening where you're going to have people elected who are just, they're not going to put up with this shit anymore on either side. And to me, the question is, then how does this end? And I hate to say this because this is going to sound so depressing and I know we have to go and I don't want to leave it on this note. You can tell me something happy after I say this. But when you had this kind of insanity before, typically the only thing that really got people out of their crazy headspace was something like, oh, I don't know, a war
Mhm.
or another war or a revolution or something that became so horrible with so much pain and suffering and death that what remained was like, we gotta just get a hold of ourselves here, right? And I don't know. I mean, what is it going to be?
Well, it's again, that's analogous to the Tea Party because when we all got elected in that wave, I think you had the largest number of first-time politicians who ever got elected. You could have the same thing in a lot of these new Democrats getting elected next year, never run before, never served before, or don't have the long careers. And you know how Washington is. Back in the Tea Party days, the establishment in Washington over time was able to co-opt a lot of those people. I don't know if that'll be the case this time around.
I don't know. I don't know. And it's going to be interesting to see on the Democratic side, but I totally agree. The Tea Party is here on the Democratic side. I don't know
And,
what's
and Julie, last thing I'll say, Democrats need this fight. They
Oh,
need it.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. And listen, I was always institutionalist. I was always a establishment Democrat. Always. I was never a Bernie Sanders Democrat. I've said that. I said this on MSNBC today. I voted for Hillary, and I voted for against Obama, and I voted for Hillary against Sanders, and not necessarily because of Hillary, but because I was an institutionalist, and I supported Biden from the jump, and not Sanders. Bernie turned out to be right. He turned out to be right about everything, everything. And if people like me in my 50s are saying this, who, worked on the Hill and worked within the party structure and always worked in the sort of establishment wing of the party. If somebody like me saying that, I can only imagine what somebody who is newly come to political kind of sentience after Trump's election, what they're thinking now, watching this party just completely devour and destroy them. It's just insane.
I want to thank you though, Julie, because I've been bummed out all day. This has been very therapeutic. I feel better.
You can come and bitch on my show anytime. Just give me a call and say I need to complain about something. Make it happen. Tell me something good before we go.
I got a second dog. Her name is Fern. She's a retired foxhound, and I am in love.
So my son just walked in the house while you and I were talking, and I hope he doesn't hear this because he has been begging us to get a second dog. We have and I want one, but my husband won't go for it.
That's bullshit, Julie. You're gonna have your husband talk to me. I will win him over.
We live in a New York City apartment, my friend. It's a little hard with the two dogs, but I'm all for it. We have a rescue. So my husband agreed to get the first dog because he's like, okay, I'll only agree to get a rescue, and it has to be a lab. I was like, no problem. I went online. I'm like rescuelab.com, whatever it's, some name. And I found this rescue lab. And I know from Mississippi, they brought him up to New Jersey. We drove to New Jersey to get him. And then I took him he's the best. His name is Hagrid. Took him to the vet and the vet's like, do you want to do a DNA test on him? I'm like, sure. So we did a DNA test on him, and the vet said he's like 20,000 different things, not one iota of a lab. None. He's everything but a lab. So now what I really want, I said to my husband, I was like, can we get a little one? Like, I really want the hot dog, the little.
No. Don't ever get a hot dog. Julie, by the way, again,
that's what my husband said. I know. Why not?
Retired foxhound. She's 5.5. They're great apartment dogs. They just want to be loved. We'll talk.
We'll talk. You know what? Actually, my husband and you should talk because send me a picture.
I would love that. I will. I'll send you a picture of Fern.
Her name's Fern.
Fern. I love that name.
I love that. Okay. This has been so great. Thank you. Come back really soon. Thank you for the therapy session, and I will see you soon. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.